a few things on the agenda that I want to go over, and you may be very familiar with them, or you may not have any idea at all. So I've got them listed here. I want to talk a little bit about page labels and bookmarks, how they relate to each other. I also want to talk about hyperlinks and places. I didn't put the word places on there, but places and hyperlinks are going to be actually much more important to each other than those first two items. And I'm going to show you with the extreme version how to batch hyperlink. It's not quite as refined as doing it individually, but it is much, much faster. So we'll take a look at that. Extracting parts of your document, I'll just basically show you how to extract a page, create a page and extract a page. That's not really that big a deal. Sets, you may or may not be aware of sets. A lot of people will get individual PDFs and then try to put them all together into one, which is pretty easy. You can insert PDFs into each other, but then you'll get an updated one sheet updated, and then you have to kind of go through and figure out where to put that, and maybe you don't want to organize things all into one document. So sets will let you create actually a separate file that will sort of hyperlink to all of the individual PDFs and get them to behave as if they were a multi-page document. So I want to show you how that works as well. And then I want to show you, if you're not aware of it, compare and overlay briefly using a single document, and then show you how to batch process those two items. And finally, I want to show you slip sheeting. And when I get to slip sheeting, I will qualify an issue I had yesterday. Hopefully we don't have that issue today. So let's get into the meat of things here. So I'm going to shift over to Bluebeam. By the way, if you were wondering what that was, that's the Windows Tab key. So if you're in Windows 10, the Windows Tab key, may even be even 7, lets you kind of see all of your little windows instead of Alt tabbing. Okay, so that's your little Windows tip. I'm in a multi-page document at the moment. If I look down here at the bottom, it says that I have 33 pages in the set. It says I'm on page 1 of 33. So if I go over to the thumbnails tab on the left-hand side, I'm in the Bluebeam Revu advanced interface. If you're following along, that's from the upper left corner. Profiles, I'm in the Revu advanced profile. Again, profiles are something that you can create simply by going to manage profiles and storing what your screen looks like. You can add and move around toolbars. Make sure you unlock them. Most of them are locked, and so it's going to make it very difficult to move them when they're locked. But if you right-click on a toolbar and it says that it is locked down here at the bottom, you can unlock it and relocate it. Okay, so notice the pages are listed as page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and that may not be very helpful, because really what you really want to be able to do is get to page A6.15, enlarged plan restrooms, right? So if a set of documents comes in, depends really on the PDF generator. If it came out of certain programs that don't use Bluebeam or don't name the pages, you want to be able to do that fairly efficiently. So let's take a look and see how we can do that. There are a couple of icons up here at the top, and I'm going to show you what these two different ones do. We're going to use the one on the right to generate our page labels. And then I'm going to also show you the bookmarks feature here. So we can start with bookmarks and then create page labels, or we can start with page labels and then use those to create bookmarks. It's really sort of up to you. Now, I'm going to go to a page where I can actually get to a region, an area of the page that I'm going to use to capture. And the area I'm going to use to capture is the sheet number and the sheet name. The create page label, the second icon up here, kind of the U shape with the asterisk, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You'll notice that I could create page labels from the bookmarks, right? So if I already had those bookmarks created over here, I could use them to create the bookmarks here. Instead, I'm going to use a page region. And with the page region, there's a button here to select. I'll click on that. The box goes away for a minute. I hold down my left button and drag a region around the item that I want to capture. When I've finished, I go ahead and let go of my left button, and this box comes up. Now it says region 1, and it's a preview, right? So initially when I tried this, I said, I don't like that name, region 1. I'm going to call that sheet number and then sheet name. And don't do that, because if you change this thing called region 1, it simply will not work, okay? I'm kind of a space person, so I like to put a couple of spaces in between the sheet number and the sheet name. And I'll go ahead and pick add. So I'll click add. The box goes away again, hold down my left button, drag a boundary around the next area I wish to capture, let go of my left button, and there we go. So there's my page number, and there is my page title. So it's going to be called region 1 and region 2. I go ahead and pick OK. And do I want to do all the pages or just some of the pages? I want to do all the pages. So watch over here on the left where it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go ahead and pick OK. It will take its sweet time, of course, to initially get started. And once it does, it'll go through and name the pages. And voila. Now, you'll notice the first page didn't get named because when it searched for that region, there was nothing there, right? So that one remains unnamed. I can go ahead and right-click on that one, and I could tell it to rename the page label. And in the little box, it's really hard to see. It's right on top of the thumbnail. I could call it the cover sheet. Or color seat, right? So again, I could go back and choose to rename that. And let's see if I can get the letter H in there somehow. There we go. And we'll go ahead and pick enter. There we go. Okay, so I have my cover sheet and I have all my other sheets. One of the things that's also new in this release, the 2019 release of the software, is a little drop-down arrow on the icon to the left of the page label generate, and that is something called page scale. So you'll notice that the pages will have scales down here if they have been calibrated. And so I can tell the software to turn on page scale, right? So I can see pretty quickly so here's 1 inch equals 8 feet. So that's 1/8 inch equals a foot. Here's 1 inch equals a foot. Maybe that's not exactly accurate, but you'll be able to kind of get an impression of the scale of each individual sheet visually there. Okay, and I need some updates apparently. So we'll get to those a little bit later on. The bookmarks, right? The bookmarks here is another way to organize your documents, right? So the thumbnail is pretty straightforward, but let's say you get to a page like this and you would like to be able to quickly get to the building section, or view 2 on that page. Or you might want to be able to get to view 1 on that page, okay? So we can do that with places, which we can then use for hyperlinking, or we can also do that with bookmarks. So bookmarks, this little tool over here on the left, if I click on that. By the way, if you're not seeing these, if you've somehow closed one of these little icons in one of the panels, you can right-click on the edge of the panel and you have show, and you can turn off on one side and turn on the other side which panels you want to see. In fact, it looks like I have everything showing except for JavaScript console. And trust me, you do not want me to try to demonstrate JavaScript. I am not very good at that. So you would choose one of them to hide. You could right click and hide it on one side and then show it on the other side. Okay. So we get to bookmarks, and again, we have a couple little icons at the top, create bookmark, add bookmark, add a bookmark before or after, right? So I'm going to begin by creating bookmarks. Click on that. And again, this looks really familiar, right? It looks exactly like creating page labels, except this time, because I'd already created the page labels, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use those page labels. And again, very quickly, I have all that information. So here I am on one of my pages, right? So here I am back on page, let's say A302. Maybe I would like to get to these different views on the page. So I could go ahead and create what I would call some child page labels. And I can do that by right-clicking on that label and choosing Add. And then I can add as a child. Now, before or after creates a separate item in the list. The child means that it's going to be nested under the parent label. So I go ahead and click Add Child. And I'm going to rename it as View 1. And I'm just going to call it Section at 1920. That was not a dash. Let's re-click, rename. I'm having all kinds of trouble typing. It's like a TV show. Okay, so I've got that view set up. I can create, again, on 302, right-click, add another child. And I'll call that View 2. And section at 24-25. Okay, so that really doesn't change anything when I click on those, right? So it's really hasn't really done much yet. So let's see how we can improve things. I can come in here to section 1, zoom in a bit. Then I can right-click on that view and I can say to set it to the current view. So I can click Set to Current View. And now when I go back to the main parent view, when I click on that, it'll take me to that view. It kind of shifted it a bit on me, but we can try to shift back over. Again, you can right-click. It doesn't quite give you as much control as you like. Set to current view. Try that and try that. Okay, still wants to shift me over. Okay. You may also do a more specific grab. So for set view 2, what I'll do is I'll right-click on view, excuse me, need a little bit of water. I will right-click on view 2. I will go over to action now, a little lightning bolt. And with action, I can jump to a page label or a page or a place if I had created that, or if I had created a space or a hyperlink or open a file, but I'm going to do a snapshot. And I'll choose Get Rectangle, hold down my left button, drag a rectangle around that, and pick OK. So again, now when I click on a different page, come back to that page and click on that view, I have view 1 and there's view 2, right? So actually doing the action part, right? Actually doing the selecting part gives you sometimes a little more accurate zoom in. So again, I'll right click on this, do action, do get rectangle. This time I'll come down here, grab that, drag up to there, and whoops, a little too far. And we will go ahead and pick that. Go ahead and pick OK. And again, section 1, section 1, and section 2. Okay, so that's pretty nice. If for some reason a page is eliminated, there is the ability to come through. There is the ability to come through and audit your bookmarks, right? So those can be audited. You can also export them to use in a different file. So those are bookmarks and page labels. They are useful for being able to navigate through a drawing, but they don't quite give us that same sort of level of being able to find things in a file by simply clicking on them. So let me go back over to my Let's go back over to here, and hyperlinks. So let's talk about hyperlinks. So places and hyperlinks. So we'll come back to here. Okay. So let's say I'm at building section 2, and let's see if I can find somewhere in the plan where that is located. So there's 1, there's 2. So there's 2 on page 302, right? So that was what we just created. And that was that particular view. Now, places over here on the right, I have this little marker that's sort of like Google Maps pin, and we have places. And it looks like someone has gone through and already created a place. How does a place get created? Well, a place gets created. So here's my sheet, A 1.2.0 right here. And here's something called the second floor reference plan, right? Now, maybe within there, I would like to zoom in on the entry lobby, something like this. So I could click on this particular tool here and create a new place. I can click on that, add place. I could give it a name. I'll call it entry lobby. Scale, I'll tell it to fit, location page, current view. I'm going to create a snapshot view, right? So I'm on page 6. I'm going to go ahead and say location is current view. I'm going to go ahead and use a snapshot view. So get rectangle, hold down my left button, drag a boundary around there, and go ahead and say OK. So there's my second floor. If I click on the plus next to that, if I click on the overall, see if I can get it to go. There we go. So if I click on the second floor reference plan, I get that. And if I click on entry lobby, I get that, right? So it's pretty easy to create places. Those you have to sort of do manually, right? There really isn't a way to do it automatically. But I have the ability to edit the boundary. Okay, so hyperlinking. Well, let's take a look at hyperlinking. So maybe I would like to be able to create a boundary around this section mark. Let me close up thumbnails over here. Create a boundary around this section mark that would allow me to simply click on that and take me directly to that location, right? And that location is going to be on page 302, and it is called page 302. It is called, see if I can just scroll down a little bit, building section at 2425, right? That was the upper one. So that's what I'm looking for. So hyperlinks are going to be a little tricky when you use places because it's done alphabetically. So we sort of have to know the name ahead of time, building section. I'll go ahead and pick the little link icon down here. That allows me to, again, drag a rectangular shape around an area, let go. And then it says, okay, what do you want to look for? Now, it would really be nice if they had included bookmarks in here, but those aren't included. So that's why we want to use places, right? So the second radio button down here, place, I could also create a place, and I'm going to now go through my list. And again, it's going to be alphabetic. So I'm going to be looking for building section at GL 2425. And I go ahead and pick OK. And so now we've created a hyperlink. If you want that hyperlink visible at this point, it is still selected. You could go to the properties panel, and there's an option here to make it visible. I will show you how to do that after the fact as well. Okay. It seems to not like to do anything until I start clicking to make a new hyperlink and then press escape to get out of it. Okay. So I'm going to close the panel on the right, zoom out a bit, and you'll notice my hand right now is set to zoom. I'll switch to the select tool so it looks different. And as I move my cursor over that hyperlink, you see how the icon changes. So I now have the ability to left click on that, and it takes me right to that section, right? So that is hyperlinking and sort of similar to what we did with page labels and bookmarks, but you have to use places in order to do that. Now, I can imagine that that would be a fairly tedious process, right? To go through this entire set of drawings and do that. So instead, what I'm going to show you is how to automate that process. What it will do is I'm going to tell it to look for something. And what I want to look for is, let's say, the sheet number. Anywhere you find that sheet number, create a hyperlink between that bit of data and the sheet number. Okay, so let us take a look at how we can process these things more efficiently. I'm going to come to the batch dropdown, and I'm going to look at batch link. Now, batch link is available in the extreme version of the software, which Dan would be very happy to sell you. Unfortunately for Dan, I always mention that not everyone maybe needs the extreme version, but I think every office needs at least one copy of it, because the batch, some of the batch processing and some of the more advanced routines in there are well worth the slight upcharge for it. So I'm going to go ahead and pick link, and I'm going to pick new. My dialog box asks me which files do I want to look at. I can go add files, add folders, add subfolders, or I can just click add open files. So for today, I'm just clicking on adding the open file. I'll go ahead and pick next. We can use a file name, a page region, a page label. I'm going to go ahead and use the page region, click select. Go ahead and drag a rectangular boundary around the sheet number, just like I've done before. And that's all I want to capture. I go ahead and pick OK. We want to take a look at a couple of things. One is settings. Now, in settings, I can go through and I can filter, right? So perhaps I want to filter 3 places from the left or 4 places from the end, or I want to use a specific character. So you have the ability to get a little bit granular with this. I'm going to just go with what we've got. And I'm going to tell it to click on link options down here at the bottom. With my link options, I could look for whole words only, use relative paths, override existing. I'm going to include an appearance property. So we get an appearance property, and that is going to be the color yellow, and we can set a certain line width and things of that sort. So go ahead and pick OK to that, and I will tell it to generate. It'll go through and check things out. It then tells me that it has found all of these things. So it looks at these different numbers and looks for the sheets that they might be located on. And I can go ahead and tell that to run. And in a matter of a few seconds, it has generated 74 hyperlinks. It deleted the one that I had created. And I will go ahead and pick finish and close. So now if I go back to that page where I had found the section over here, right? We can now see that there is a rectangle around that, but we can also see there's now a yellow rectangle around that. There's a yellow rectangle around that. If I went back to the cover sheet, we'll see yellow rectangles around most of the sheets. The numbers that don't have those rectangles don't have sheets in the set. So I can click on sheet A305 and instantly go to that sheet. Or if I go back to the beginning and go to this section mark, whoops, let me go to the section mark here. If I click on 2A302, it takes me there. Right? Now, if I come back over here, right, you'll see all of these hyperlinks. right? So that hyperlink for to A302, right, may not be quite as accurate as I wanted it, right? So on here's A3, let's see if I can get to A302. Oh, A302, it didn't list anything there for, I don't know why, but it should have, but it is taking me there. So the different links, oh, here it is, taking me to that traverse section there on A302. So if that takes me there, if I look for some of those others, that would be on this section here. Oh, that was on page 1 point. See if I can find that one that takes me to their traverse. Building section, longitudinal building section. Anyway, what we can do is you can always, when you click on something like this, right, instead of it taking you to the whole, instead of taking to the whole page or the whole view where that hyperlink is created from, you can zoom in a bit more on them by overriding, right? So you can right click on these and edit the action, right? And when you edit the action, you can choose get rectangle. So you can always zoom in more closely if you want. But that's a really fast way to generate a lot of hyperlinks in your set, right? Okay. So that is sort of the batch hyperlinking process. Do them one by one or do them lots at a time. So let's see what else I've got. Come back to my agenda. So we finish with bookmarks, labels, and showing you individual hyperlinks and then batch hyperlinking. Extracting documents, that one shouldn't take, oops, that's absolutely not what I wanted. I wanted this. So let me go back to the first page in here. Perhaps I need to capture part of the screen and put that out as a separate document. So I may want to add a new page to this. Maybe I need an RFI or a summary report or a cover sheet or something of that sort. So I could go to the file dropdown and I could go ahead and tell it to, what I want to do is to add a page. Actually, I'm going to do it inside the thumbnails. I'm going to right click and tell it to insert a blank page. So I'll do that from here. And in the dialog box that pops up, I have the ability to use templates. So I don't have to use a blank page. I can use templates. You can create a template from the file pull down menu. We went through that in our webinar on tips and tricks that you can find on our website. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the MRC RFI, right? I click on that. It says, where do I want that? I'm going to put that in the first page. Right? So all I did was create a PDF and saved it as a template file. I could now come through and edit some of the text in there to change the date and page number, things of that sort. I'm going to do a quick screen capture over here of part of the building. And I can do that from the edit dropdown, snapshot tool, or the letter G. I'll go ahead, hold down my left button, drag a boundary, come back to that page, right click, tell it to paste, drag it in, drag it to a new position and a new size. And if I don't want it to move, but don't want to flatten the page yet, I can right click and lock it. So now it's in there, but it can't be moved around, right? So I can't physically move that. At this point, extracting the page is pretty straightforward. All I have to do is right click on that, tell it to extract that page. Do I want to delete it after extracting? Sure, I'll go ahead and delete that. Do I want to open the file after extraction? Sure. Do I want to extract them as separate pages? Well, I'm only doing one page, so I'm doing selected one of 34. but you could do all the pages if you wanted to. Actually, it says all the pages. I'm going to just say the current page, right? So current page 1. Open file, update hyperlink. Sure, I'll go ahead and pick OK. It asks me where do I want to put it. I'll put it into my folder that I'm in right here, and there it is. So that page is extracted. And if I go back to my set, you'll see that it was removed. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy to create a new page from a template and then extract that. And if you hear some buzzing in the background, the gardeners across the street have decided that today is the perfect day to do hedge trimming. So I apologize for any of that. Okay, so let's move on to our next topic, which is sets. So let me show you sets. Okay, so I'm going to close this file down and I won't save that. Let's say we have a folder and we have, actually I'll use open. Let's close that. I'll use the open tool and we have a folder in here called unlinked sheets. And here are all of my sheets. So I could click here on this file to open that. And then I could go back to open and I could open my next file, let's say here, right? And you'll notice that what's happening is it's opening each of these as an individual file. After a while, I'm going to get an awful lot of tabs across the top of the screen. Well, that may not be the most efficient way to work with this. So over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to click on the Sets tool. What I'm going to do is use a drop-down arrow and create a new set. It's going to tell me that, yeah, it's going to create a new set and it's going to behave sort of like if it was a one individual file. So I'll go ahead and tell it to add a folder. I'm going to tell it to add a folder. I'm going to go ahead and use my folder called Unlinked Sheets. I'll select that folder and it finds all the files in there, right? I can use relative paths. I can save that under options. I'll use the file name and page label. You can sort your sheets by page number, a whole bunch of different settings that you can use inside of here. So I'll go ahead and pick OK to that. I'll go ahead and pick OK. Goes ahead and builds me this list, shows me all of the sheets that are now going to be in my set, and I go ahead and pick OK. I am not going to go through with tags, so I will close that. So now on the right-hand side, I get something that looks pretty much like the thumbnails tab on the left-hand side, right? So it's listing all of my individual sheets here, and I can left-click on them and watch the tabs up here at the top of the screen. Watch what happens when I click from one file to another. It closes the first one and it opens this one up. And so it's really pretty easy to work with a set of documents that are individual sheets that aren't linked together into a single file by using a set. Now, right now it's called the new set. I could go ahead and use the drop-down arrow and save that set. I'm going to save it into that folder where the sheets are. I'll call this the architecture. See if I can spell today, the architecture set. The file type is a BEX extension. That's a Bluebeam extension for the file. And that, along with the actual files themselves, that can be sent really anywhere. And you would now be able to access a folder full of files simply by using this BEX file. But I'll go ahead and pick save. It's now saved. I could now close that set, right? To reopen the set, pretty straightforward. I can come down here and use sets, open set. There is architecture set. I'm in the totally wrong folder. Let's come back here to unlinked sheets. There's my set and pick open. And it says, yeah, you're about to do that. And boom, there you go. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy to very quickly get to multiple individual pages. Okay, let me close this, close the set, and close the page. Okay, the final items have to do with comparing documents and overlay, compare overlay, and then doing that dynamically and slip sheeting. So let me come back in and just quickly show you individual features of compare. So I'm going to open up two files. I have them open from, I have revision A, revision B, right? And you can go through, split your screen, try to find where the changes are, right? Let me get on this side, that's B. Let me go to A on this side so we can see where the changes are. Maybe we can't see where the changes are, right? So that's not necessarily the most efficient way to do things. So we have a tool under document to be able to compare the documents. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the features, but I've got document A, document B. I can go through and pick advanced. I can set up my ability to how granular I want to look for differences. I can create clouds. I'll go ahead and create a new document from the second document and pick OK. And what it does, it splits the screen, opens document A on the right, document B copied and clouded on the left, right? And I can very quickly see where those changes are. Okay. But maybe I want to do more than one at a time. So let me go ahead and close this. Don't save that, and I will close these guys down. Okay. So let's say I would like to batch compare two files. So I would have, let's say, slip sheet originals and revision 1, or revision 1 and let's do that. So I've got revision 1 and slip sheet. So now I've got the ability to do what's called batch compare. So I come to batch and tell it to compare documents. And what I'll do is I'll add the open files. I'm going to take this one out by removing that. I will now add the other open files here. You can use the page name, file name, page index, page label, page region manually. There's some advanced settings that you can set as well to help find things. And I'll go ahead and just tell it to match the pages. Now, it says there were 12 matches. There were no unmatched pages. So I'll go ahead and tell it to go OK. And what it will do is it will go through and check the files. It says there were 6 compared, none unmatched, create a detailed report as a PDF, create a batch summary, and overwrite any existing file and open the file after creation. So I'll say, OK. And there it is. Now, what it says is that it created this comparison document right here. And I click on that, and it has all of the highlights in there, right? So it's hyperlinked. I can click on this, and it's created the document for me. So it goes through into the folder where that information is, and it adds in, let me go ahead and go here, it goes ahead and creates those compare sheets. So these sheets right here were what it just created. Okay. You can also do that for the overlay feature. So overlay allows me to take two documents. I'll choose overlay here, plan A and plan B. The overlay feature under document dropdown will allow me to choose different colors. Normally it's red and green. I've changed them, and I'm going to change the position of document A, and I'll go ahead and choose OK. What it does, that creates a new file called overlay, and in that file, it creates what we call layers. Now those layers, plan A is the original file, so I'll turn off plan B layer. and I'll turn off Plan A. So where I see yellow, that's new. Where I see purple, that's existing. And then I can see the differences between the two, okay? So that's nice, but you can also do that on a batch process. So let me go ahead and show that. Again, if I come to my batch, I have batch overlay, right? And that's gonna work the same way, right? So I can add files from my folder here. So I have Slipsheet originals, and I could go ahead and add the compare file, the overlay file, Slipsheet revision, whoops, keeps taking me to the wrong folder, Slipsheet revision 1. Again, a whole bunch of different settings. I'll go ahead and tell it to match the pages, and I'll go ahead and pick OK. And this time, takes a little bit longer. I'll go ahead and create that PDF and open it up. And there it is. I'll go ahead and click on the overlay sheet, right? And it's created this new sheet. Whoa, that one didn't go so well. So I don't think I set the page range right on that one. Okay, so I'm not gonna beat that one to death. Looks like that one, let's see what we got here, slip sheet. Let's just see what this guy looks like. I probably needed to look at my settings a little more. I think I used all the pages on top of each other. Okay, so I apologize for not paying attention on that one. The last one I want to show you is batch slip sheeting. So ignore the fact I totally screwed that one up. It does work if you do set the settings correctly in there. What I'm going to do is show you batch slip sheeting. The idea is I've got a revised set of documents, and I want to slip that revised set into the original, and I want to mark the original pages as superseded and create a report of that. So I will go ahead and add files for my originals. I will go out to here and pick my Slipsheet originals. And then for the revised files, I will pick the revision 1. So I'll come down to Slipsheet revision 1. And I will look at excuse me, any of the advanced features, right? 6 pages, I'll pick OK to that. And let's go ahead and pick match the pages. It goes through, it says it matched the pages. What I'm going to do is insert revised pages before the current page, but there's a drop down. You can replace them, copy markups from the originals to the revised pages. So if you had any markups, they would be transferred, unflatten, stamp, current pages superseded. Yesterday, it didn't seem to like the current atmosphere in Bluebeam, and it forced me to close it and reopen. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that it doesn't do that to me now in the demo. Oh, and it looks like well, it looks like it did Slipsheet 6 pages, so we'll see what happens. We'll go ahead and pick OK to that, and it looks like it worked. So it said Slipsheeted 6 pages, and what it did is it Slipsheeted into this document. So let me go ahead and click on that, but let me go to the thumbnails, and for that, oh, that's the revision 1. Let me go back to the original document. So here's the original document, and you'll notice what it did with the original document is that it slip-sheeted in the revised page in front of each of these pages. So 1.1, here's 1.1, the original, right? So it's pretty easy to take a set of documents that's a multi-page set of documents and update them and mark the previous version slip-sheeted. And you can do the same thing with when you get additional files.